Hi. So I'm doing one of these again. Yeah, I'm doing one of these again. So we'll start off. Of course, you read the title. Now, if you guys do not watch the vlog, there's also a vlog pertaining to this video right here. And well, it's pertaining to, do you want to hear a story? Yeah. So, alright, so one of the vlogs I was biking, as I was at the skate park I always go to, there were some dudes that came by. And of course some ladies, but they're all just dudes. So they went to the skate park, and they were setting up for like a church rap group thing, and they're setting up outside. But when they first came in the park, like they go and they come together and they sit down in a group and they like scope out the area. They're trying to see what they could find. They left a big mess. They left a huge mess, and they went outside and they did their thing, you know, praising whoever they're praising. And they went inside after they were done, and they were passing out flyers, telling people to go to their church and stuff like that. And I actually went to this church before. I was actually a member, you can say. Not for long, but I was a member. And this is what it's pertaining to. Now again, I have a bunch of stories. Like I've lived life. Not to its fullest yet, but I've lived. And I've had a bunch of mistakes. And I've had a bunch of wins. More mistakes than wins though. And this one, I don't know if it's a mistake or it's a win, but I'm just going to tell you, before I even start talking and getting into the story, when you feel like life is down, and someone comes up to you and tries to persuade an opportunity, and this opportunity looks amazing, always think about the worst thing that can happen from that opportunity. Because that way, when it does, you're prepared. You're prepared for the worst. Always prepare for the worst. That's just something I always do. Alright, now with the story. Now, if you guys aren't aware, I am really into computers. Like, oh my god, into computers. I love technology. I love it. When I was 20, there was a computer store down the street, and it all started off by me buying a used Dell computer at like a swap. And the dude was selling for like $200. And I was super excited because it was literally the first computer that I've ever owned, and I paid for it for myself. Now, saying that, the computer was crap. It was $200, you know. I think it had like Windows 98, a horrible computer. Now, as that computer was dying like the second day, I noticed there was a computer store literally down the street from where I used to live back in the day. Now, I took this computer to them, and I was saying this is like back history, okay? Now, I took the computer to them, and the dudes over there were like the coolest people I've ever met. They offered to rebuild this Dell computer into my first gaming computer, right? That was my first gaming computer, which is super cool. Now, as time progressed, I ended up learning, and I went to school, of course. I ended up building my own computers. Now, with life, anything in general, not just computers, if I get something new, the stuff that I have before, most of the time, I say most of the time, majority of the time, I will give it away. Because, like, I just see it as, if I don't need it, you know, someone else might need it. Might want it, you know, so might as well just give it to him. Now, saying that, there was this one gentleman there, and I'm not going to say names of the people. Now, this gentleman, you know, he wanted a gaming computer, and I went up to him, and he actually was helping there at that computer store. Now, I'm going to say the name of the computer store because it no longer exists. Now, the name of that computer store was called Best Deal Computers, and oh man, that was some of the best times I've ever had. Was at the store. Now, this gentleman there was talking about how he wanted a game computer, then he couldn't afford it, and I was like, well, no, dude, I literally have a whole setup at home. Saying that because I just bought a motherboard, you know, the case, drives. I think the only thing I told him was, no, dude, just buy RAM. And back then, RAM was decently cheap. I say decent, it was like maybe $40. But then again, he was helping the dudes at the computer store, so most likely they were going to give it to him. Now, I gave him these parts, right? And he built the computer, and then he goes up to me. He's like, no, dude, thank you for, you know, giving me the parts. I would never be able to do that on my own. I was like, yeah, no problem, dude. You know, it was really no big deal because they were just parts in a box in my house. They're good parts, too. They're really good parts. But yeah, the dude says something to me, though. He's like, are you Christian? I look at him like, why? He's like, because the only people that are nice are Christians. I'm like, dude, you don't have to be Christian to be nice. It's just being a good human being. You know, you gotta be nice. Nice things happen. Bad things happen. Doesn't mean you gotta be part of some religion. Now, my life was really good. I mean, like, I was having the time of my life. I was enjoying it, living it up. But, of course, life has its up and downs. Now, from 20 to 22, only a few years, I started getting really bad. I started making a lot of money, and eventually that money just disappeared, just like that, just gone. But it was my fault. No one's but my fault. Now, I was struggling. I didn't have a place to live, a place to call my own. At that time, I really didn't know what to do with life, and I ended up meeting that gentleman again, the one I gave the computer parts to. At that time, he noticed I was really, really low. Like, I was at the bottom. There was no way for me to get up at that time. Now, he asked me, he's like, hey, I see that you're having problems, why don't you come to church with me? I was like, what, sure, I'll go to church with you, there's nothing wrong that can happen. And of course, the first day I went to church, this particular church, the pastor was, doing his thing, and then it hit me. I was like, oh my God, he's talking about me. That's where they get you. They really do. Saying that, I started going to the church more often, and it came to the point where, I was going at least 4 or 5 times a week. Crazy. Really, really, really crazy. I was going quite a bit, and I also lost my job too at that time. Again, my fault. But I lost my job, and one of the dudes there was like, we take care of our own. So I was like, hey, that's cool, He's like, would you like a job? I was like, yeah, dude, I want a job. So he gave me the job, and I was actually a bread vendor, a bread man. I delivered bread to restaurants and stores, like Walmart. Now, this gentleman, was supposed to be super what they called Christ-like, all right? Now, if you don't know what Christ-like is, the people that follow in, Christ's footsteps are the majority of it since we're in New Age. Well, this gentleman offered me a job, and I took it. I took it in a heartbeat. It was like that. I really, really wanted the job. So yeah, I was a bread man, and I did everything, everything I ever could. And it started getting to a certain point where my eyes would open up a little because I would see the stuff that he was doing. Remember, he's supposed to be Christ-like, right? See, I was seeing the stuff that he was doing, and I started noticing the stuff around the area, the people, what they were doing, It sort of seemed different because, like I said, I've been going to this church for a while now, and I've been going 4 or 5 times a week. They tell you all this stuff, and then you feel like it's about you. You really feel like it's about you. The world doesn't revolve around you, okay? But when the pastor speaks, it feels like it's like, oh my God, it touches you. As I was working for this gentleman, right, I noticed stuff that he had, and he was talking about how Christ changed his life. This church changed his life because he was a workaholic, a cheater, an alcoholic, named it a gangster, just kept piling all these things on his list. Now, again, I said I opened up my eyes, and I started noticing that nothing's changed about him. Now, saying this, eventually I took over the gentleman's route, and I was doing the drives for him. But he wasn't supposed to be there. He can stay home. He has people doing his job. That never happened. He'd always be there, making sure you were doing that. Of course, it's his company. I understand that. I do understand that. But you can't turn around and say that this person has changed you when you're still doing the exact same thing. Well, eventually, when I was with Miss Sandra, my kid's mom, we got to a certain point where we were struggling again. That's because I was relying on too many people at that time. Now, I was also relying on someone for a place to live, and I'm not going to lie, they quite frankly just did us bad. So we were homeless. Beginning of us being homeless. I've been homeless before more than once. Saying that, as we were homeless, the first day, we were homeless, but the first day of us being on the street, I didn't want to leave her on the street because, she was my companion. I can't leave her out on the street. You don't do that. So since it was supposed to be just me driving the truck, I was like, hey, I told Miss Sandra, I was like, just come with me. We'll do my route, and then at the end of the day, we'll go get a hotel or something to stay in until we figure out what we can do. Now, I went and I delivered my breads to Walmart, and then I went to another store. It was by Wiener Schnitzel. Well, when I got there, gentleman, my boss at that time, remember the one that, said he wasn't a workaholic and all this other stuff, he meets me there. And because he was going to jump on and help me with the route. And I was like, I don't need the route. I told him on the phone. But then again, I also didn't think having Miss Sandra with me was a problem. It's a 2-seater. What's going to happen? But he jumps over there and he notices and he pulls me out of the truck. And he's like, hey, why is she with you? I'm like, well, dude, I tried to explain to him. And I was like, well, we just lost our place where we're living. we don't have a place, to call home, and I don't want to leave her out on the street. It was freezing that day too. Like, I don't want to leave her out on the street. I can't. I just can't. I didn't see a problem with it, and I explained to him nice and kindly. I didn't see a problem with her, being on my route. I'm just delivering bread. It's not going to affect her, There isn't like there's some kind of reliability because you're just paying me out of pocket too. There's no contract signed and all that stuff. Just so you guys know, when a vendor hires you, you get paid out of pocket. Well, the dude takes me to his car and tells me, of course, to take a seat. So I sit down in the car, and then he's like, hey, I'm going to have to let you go. I was like, why? Why are you going to let me go? He's like, because you brought her with you. I was like, dude, we're homeless. Trying to explain myself to defend myself. Now, again, I understand he is boss. He is boss. It's his thing. But he's like, yeah, he's like, how come you couldn't just leave her on the street? He's like, what do you mean, how come I couldn't just leave her on the street? He's like, yeah. And I was like, that's wrong, dude, And then he goes and tells me something. Remember, again, I know he's boss. He can do whatever he wants. But it's what he told me. He's like, first, she's not Christian. I was like, what? She's not Christian. I was like, well, what does that have to do with that? He's like, we don't help the homeless. I was like, dude, but I'm homeless. I don't have. He's like, yeah, I know. We don't help the homeless. I was like, that's pretty messed up. And I told him, like, no, dude, you, sir, are a hypocrite. I told him that. But after he told me that, he's like, also, you guys are together. And at this time, we were barely getting married, right? We were going through the process, I paid the court fees and everything. He's like, since you're part of this church, right? You guys aren't even supposed to be together for 3 months. I was like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, you're not supposed to talk to each other for 3 months. He's like, we discussed it with the pastor and everybody. You're not supposed to be together. I was like, why? And I understood what he said, though, but it's stupid. He said, because blood is supposed to be thicker. And he's saying that, so meaning in the 3 months that you're not, that you guys aren't together, it's supposed to be like a period of deciding. I understand that. That's it's logic. But, again, it's the part that he said, you guys can't be together because she's not Christian. I was like, dude, you're stupid. I was like, whatever, whatever. So then I tell him, I was like, well, why would you say that? Aren't you supposed to be Christian, nice, and all this other, nonsense that he represents himself? And he tells me this. This was like the icing on top of the cake, the cherry that sits on top. He tells me, just because we're in church, and just because we say we're Christian, when we're outside of church, we're completely different people. And I understand that. I completely understand that. And I was like, wow, dude, you suck as a person. You straight suck as a person. Now, all this rambling, now seeing these dudes at the skate park, doing their thing, trying to get these kids involved in their shenanigans, I realize how bad these guys are. They're just bad people, especially because they went to the skate park, trying to praise the Lord, and they left the biggest mess. And they didn't even acknowledge it. They just left it. Literally left it and came back and passed flyers. So the flyers be thrown on the floor again. Horrible people. So yeah, I guess that's the story. I don't know. I don't want to keep rambling. There's a lot more into detail I can go, but I don't want to just ramble and keep on going. I've had really bad experiences. I'll say this again, if you guys are at that point where you're super low in life, you feel like you have no other thing to do, you just can't do anything else to help yourself get out of that hole that you dug yourself into. I'm saying most of the times, you dig yourself in that hole. And someone comes up to you and offers you a way out. Always think about the worst thing that can happen, because if that worst thing happens, you're way more prepared for it. Now, I'm going to lead off right here. And like I always say, I will see you guys next time.